Here today recording the interview of Mike Trantanella, being conducted by Eric Whitty, Ken Clements, and Sarah Hodgkin from the Wright State University Veterans Voices Project. This interview is being recorded at VFW Post 5434 in Union, Ohio. It's 5 p.m. on August 31st, 2014. Okay, Mike, just to start off, where and when were you born?
I was born here in Dayton, Ohio, on July 21st, 1960.
Okay. Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
My father is Richard Trantanella. My mother is Phyllis Robinette now. They were divorced. My father was a toolmaker for 48 years. Worked for different companies around the city of Dayton, even actually a few years down in Florida, building parts for Cape Canaveral for the Apollo rockets for a little while. And yeah, that was kind of a neat thing. And then we moved back to Dayton, and then he's been doing that, and I actually followed in his footsteps. I'm a toolmaker. My mother was Phyllis Robinette. She was basically just a full-time housewife taking care of 5 kids. So
Okay.
it was a full-time job, definitely. 4 boys and a little girl.
4 boys and a little girl?
Yeah, my little sister became a tomboy real quick.
Did any of your parents or brothers or sisters serve in the military?
Yes, actually, my brother underneath me, Richard Allen Lee Trantanella, served in the Army Reserves for 4 years with the Ohio Army Reserves, I think out of Lima, Ohio. And my brother Tony, which is right under him, was in the Navy for 4 years on the USS Coral Seas.
Okay. And did you guys enlist one after the other or at the same time?
Yeah, it was kind of one after the other. I kind of went in first, and then Lee came in maybe about a year after me, and then I think Tony was like 2 years after me.
Okay. So what were you doing before you enlisted?
I was working at a United Color Press of Dayton, actually. It was a printing company here in Dayton. It was just like around 1979, 1980. But the printing business kind of went to hell in a handbasket, I guess you could say, in Dayton, and basically the company folded. It was a nice union job. But when they folded, I said, well, you know, I'm going to have to do something. So I decided to enlist in the Army.
Nice. Why did you pick the Army?
Just to be able to see different parts of the world, I guess, is the thing. You know, I knew that I was going to get the opportunity to go to different places and do different things, and I don't know. It's just first people I talked to got me real interested in it, and I kind of just stuck with it. I did talk to a Navy recruiter also, but I just stuck with the Army.
Okay. What did your parents think when you told them that you were joining?
They thought it was a good thing. I mean, you know, you're a young guy going in, you're going to learn discipline, you know, motivation, teamwork, unity, all the good things about the military, which makes the military one of the best in the world.
And again, when exactly did you enlist?
It was I enlisted in September of 1980, but I didn't go in until actually October of 1980.
So you were just about 20 or
Yeah,
had been 20?
just a little over 20.
Okay. So, when you departed for training camp, what was it like?
For basic training?
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of scary at first because I still had like long hair and all that, and when you got there, you didn't really know what to expect. I mean, when we got to the reception station, I guess is what they called it initially there at Fort Leonard Wood. So the first couple 3 days, really, we didn't do nothing but walk around and pick up cigarette butts, police the area, you know, basic stuff like that. And then of course, when they actually did put us on the cattle trucks, I guess you call them, and shipped us there, yeah, that was scarier than hell. There's 8 drill sergeants running around you, yelling, hollering, screaming, get in a line, get in formation, grab your bags, get your ass, get it in gear, yada yada yada. But you got kind of used to that after a couple days. But yeah, initially it was kind of I didn't know what to expect, so it was definitely a scary situation.
So how did you adapt to military life? The physical routine, the food, the barracks life?
Yeah, it was, that part really wasn't hard. I mean, basically you just had to do what you were told, and as long as you did what you were told. But the food was great. I enjoyed it. Physically fit, I was already physically fit when I was young anyway. I actually ended up becoming what they call a super jock in our company. The top 10% most physically fit people in our unit, in our basic training unit, got to wear these little bandanas on our sleeves, on our sleeve. And I shouldn't say a bandana, but it was just a cover like thing. It said SJ on it. It was for super jock. Well, that was great, you know, because you got to eat all your meals. You got to get in line. You got to cut in line, go first. Basically, all the super jocks got to eat first. But if we were dropped for flare drills or for push-ups for any reason, if the company or our platoon had to go down, we had to do twice as many. So there's a risk reward part of that. But that was fun. I couldn't do 40 push-ups when I first got in there, and I could do 150 when I got out after 8 weeks of basic training.
So you did the basic training for 8 weeks at Leonard Wood, and then you did your AIT?
Yes, Fort Huachuca, Arizona, at the Military Intelligence School and Center.
Okay. And what was your MOS?
26 Charlie. It's a ground surveillance radar repairman.
How did you get that MOS?
Actually, I wanted to go into the medical field, and because they said I didn't have, what was it, an extra semester of chemistry in my high school. For my high school, they called it physical science when I graduated from Miamisburg, and because they classified it as physical science and not chemistry, it was a technicality. So basically I said, well, okay, if I can't go into the medical field, I want to do something in electronics, because electronics seemed to be where the technology was kind of just starting to take off, and I wanted to do something in that. So they offered me that, and it sounded good, sounded different. It was microwave technology kind of like. So I thought that would be different.
So it was your second choice, but still your choice?
Oh yes, absolutely.
And how long were you there in Arizona?
A little over 10 months. And they actually had to do a top secret security clearance on me because the equipment was new technology at the time, and basically they weren't wanting anyone in there that was going to possibly give up trade secrets or whatever, you know.
Did you know that they were doing the background check on you?
Oh yes, yeah, they completely had me fill out paperwork, every friend, every person I hung out with in high school, my parents, my grandparents, my brothers, my sister, I mean everything. So yeah, they did a full, complete background check on me.
Did you do an interview with a psychiatrist too?
Yes. Actually.
So were you nervous about the background check, or?
No. I'm red, white, and blue American.
There you go. Okay. So where did you go after AIT?
I was transferred to Fort Riley, Kansas at that point with the 1st Infantry Division. I was stationed with the 701st Maintenance Battalion, and they detached me to the to a MI battalion in my company, only because that's where the radar units were basically, when the radar units were deployed, they stayed with the military intelligence because they wanted that information immediately. So that's with ground movements, troop movements, equipment movements, and that's what the ground surveillance radar did. So when they got that information, they wanted it like immediately, so they wanted a repairman with them, so if anything happened to one of the radar units, that we could get it fixed immediately so they could continue to gather intelligence.
Interesting. So how long were you there at Fort Riley?
A little over 2 years. Just a little bit over 2 years, which put me just about 3 years in service when I actually left there. Got my associate's degree there, liberal arts and science.
Did you go to Kansas State, or did you stay on base?
It's Kansas State.
Kansas State.
And Manhattan, because it's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was a full-time student, full-time soldier, and a part-time husband at the time.
Oh,
I wasn't home very often.
when did you get married?
We actually got married, me and my first wife, Carolyn, was married in 1980, actually, in April.
So before you left for boot camp,
Yeah.
what did she think about you enlisting?
She was worried about it and worried about me, just whether or not I'd be able to handle it, I guess. But she was excited for me because she knew that it was going to be a good job, a good career, if I stuck with it.
So obviously she stayed behind when you went to basic training. When did
Yes.
she follow you?
When I went to AIT, she was actually allowed to come down to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and we got us a little mobile home trailer off post and lived there. It was nice.
Okay, so okay, so you were definitely busy while you were there at Fort Riley. Did you guys do field exercises there? Or?
Yes, actually, we were deployed to Gallant Eagle in 1981 at the National Training Center at Fort Irwin, California, in the middle of the Mojave Desert. It was an interesting exercise. It was the 1st Infantry Division and I do believe the 40th National Guard against the 82nd Airborne and their California Reserve Unit. It was quite a 2-week FTX. We saw snow in the middle of the Mojave Desert. We woke up one morning with a ½ inch of snow on our tents. Of course, it was melted by the time the sun came up. We actually even got overran by the 82nd Airborne at one point in time. All they wanted to do was use our showers. They flew in, threw canisters of CS gas into the camp. Basically came in and just took us all prisoner, and then they started funneling choppers full of their troops in just to use our showers.
So you were with the headquarters elements of your regiments?
Yes, headquarters in Alpha Company.
So you had the good chow and the showers and...
Yes, sir. Absolutely. That was kind of the nice thing about being with headquarters in Alpha. They took care of themselves. That's for, well, and everybody else also. But
did you ever get cross-trained for any other duties, or?
yeah, I actually would learn a little bench work on 31 Echo, which is a two-way radio communication, which they had me help out when I wasn't too busy working on the radar. So they had me working on two-way radio communications.
Makes sense.
Stayed with the electronics. Became a primary driver for a Chief Warrant Officer. Chief Warrant Officer Stewart, great man.
Okay. Any other major operations while you were there with First ID?
Yeah, actually, we also got the opportunity to do Reforger in 1982, which is the return of forces to Germany, where they packed up the whole 1st Infantry Division, all of our equipment and everything, put us on planes, and shipped us off to Germany in a 14-hour deployment. They basically, it was a rapid deployment exercise, is what it was. They basically blew a whistle, and it was like go.
So you guys didn't know it was coming?
Well, we had a kind of a feeling something was happening because they were having us pack a lot of equipment up and this, and I'm like, what are we getting ready to do, an FTX or something? And all of a sudden it was just like an alert, drop the alert horn, and basically everybody shows up, you load up, you get on a plane, and we were gone.
So from when you got the word you were going, how long was it before you were on the ground in Germany?
In about 13 or 14 hours.
That's impressive. With all your gear and everything?
All our gear and everything.
And how long were you in Germany?
Roughly about 45 days. This is 45, 46 days, something like that.
Was this strictly a training operation, or was there some other reason they were?
No, it was just basically battle readiness preparation in case there was ever going to be another European war or something like that. Just for us, because we were going to stage in Germany and then deploy anywhere else that we needed to go from that point if it was needed.
You said this was in '82?
Yes, sir.
So there was still a very real
Well, it was through the Cold
possibility.
War, yeah, with the East and West Germany, and yeah, you just never knew what was going to happen. The wall was still up.
What did you think at the time? Did you think that was a possibility?
That's always a possibility. I mean, that's kind of the risk of it. That's why you join the military. I mean, you're there to serve, and if you're needed, duty calls.
Did you guys get specialized training in case of working in a nuclear environment?
We got to do some stuff with basically biological, more so than nuclear, but it was dealing with biological warfare. So yeah, we were in our chemical suits a lot. Matter of fact, I have a picture of that in my photo album with me fully involved with my gas mask and my M16 and chemical suit and the whole 9 yards. But yeah, just mostly biological, not really too much nuclear. We did take some training, basically don't look, towards the flash, try to get in a low-lying area, try to protect yourself as best as possible, and pray you survive, if it happened.
Did you ever work on radars that were attached to like Patriot batteries?
No, they did have some of them attached to ATCs. Am I saying that right? The track vehicles.
Oh, with the track-mounted surface-to-air missiles.
It was nothing really surface to air or anything like that. These weren't like tracking radar. These weren't guidance radar. I guess. Basically, what the ground surveillance radar did was it tracked movement on the screen. Basically, it sends out blitz like a speeding radar gun. It sees you, sees how fast you're going.
I gotcha.
This is basically could track, the ground surveillance radar could track troop movements and equipment movements, like deuce and halves or big large equipment. Actually, it was as sensitive as to be able to, a good radar operator could actually track one individual walking. And supposedly, I never really saw this in fact, but I've heard in theory, or they were pulling my chain or something, that you could be able to tell whether it was a man or a woman walking.
Huh.
Supposedly by the way their trousers swished, or their uniform. I don't know that. I just heard that. That's all total theory.
Interesting. What was the range like on those?
2 kilometers, 2-3 kilometers. Because we could actually look into North Korea when I was stationed in Korea, because the DMZ was only 2 miles wide.
Mm-hmm.
So having that capability to go 2-3 kilometers, depending on where you're at and how you set your azimuth for the radar unit, you could go at least 3 kilometers.
Oh wow!
So you could look into North Korea and see what their borderline troops were doing and what their equipment was doing, and they used that intelligence to counter affect what our military was going to do, or where we were going to build up troops at, or in case there ever became an offensive.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get back to Germany.
I'm sorry. Yes.
That's okay. So how long total were you in Germany?
Just about 45 days.
45 days.
Yes, sir.
Where was your unit sent, or was it split up? And
yeah, kind of the units were split up, and a little bit here, a little bit there. We were in Wiesbaden, down in the Bavarian area for a while. We flew into Stuttgart, and then once we got our equipment and everything, one company went one way, another company might go another, but our division was kind of split up and just moved around, and it was different. That's
So what exactly, I guess the point of the exercise was the deployment. What did you guys do once you got to Germany?
We worked with the West German military, basically just on another FTX kind of exercise, just training together with the West German military and then our U.S. military. Mm-hmm. And basically it's just another training exercise. I don't really know how that worked. I never really saw the enemy too much other than the one incident out in Gallant Eagle, where we actually got gassed by the 82nd Airborne and overran our camp there for the shower use.
So you were there for 45 days. Now, you said you were the Chief Warrant Officer's driver.
Yes. Yes, Chief Stewart was a great guy. I think for him, this FTX was more like a vacation because he had his camera and he was just wanting to go around and see the countryside. And basically, he's like, Specialist Trantanella, come on, we're going. And I'm like, okay. I said, do I need to bring anything special? He said, just bring yourself. And we'd get in the Jeep and we'd take off. And he said he was doing scouting because he's the technical officer. The chief warrant officers were the technical officers. So he used the excuse that he's scouting other campsites or possible sites for us to move to, because once we were there, we did not stay in the same place for any real long period of time. We were moving around probably every 4 or 5 days to a different location somewhere in Germany, but it was always usually in the middle of the woods somewhere. But yeah, that was his excuse. But that we get out and see the countryside, enjoy the bread and the beer and the hospitality of the West German people.
Let's talk about that. So they were glad you were there?
Oh yes, they were very happy. They were very outgoing, very friendly, hospitable people. I mean, that's what I loved about the military, was learning about the different cultures that that are in different areas where you go, and they were outstanding people. I mean, everywhere you went, they tried to give you a beer, and I'm like, I'm driving. I can't do that. The chief's like, okay, I'll take it. I'll take his too. But yeah, it was an outstanding tour, an FTX that we did there in Germany. I wish I'd actually had the chance to done an actual tour of duty there, which would have been an 18-month period. But to learn more about them. But in the 45 days that I was there, it was a great experience for me.
Okay. So you're in Germany for 45 days, and then you went back to Kansas?
Yes, we were still stationed back to Fort Riley, and we were there. And then a deployment I got orders to deploy to South Korea,
okay,
with the 2nd Infantry Division, where I was stationed at Camp Casey, about 2.5 miles just south of the DMZ. But as my MOS called for, I was up on the DMZ more than I was at Camp Casey, because there was 4 radar hill sites that we had there, and of course with the unstable situation in the DMZ there, they were always constantly monitoring the DMZ, and the ground surveillance radar was the biggest weapon we had to do, or the biggest thing, the biggest part of being able to monitor that 2-mile wide strip there in South Korea.
And the North Koreans trying to cross the DMZ, how big of a threat did you think that was at the time?
Oh, it was an everyday occurrence. They were always out probing, coming across. The DMZ is set up with the Imjim River right down the middle of it, so that's your 1-mile line. They could stay north of that river. They could send units into the DMZ, into the barbed wire and fenced in area, in the mined areas, but if we went north of the Imjim River, then basically we're on their side of the DMZ and we could be shot at. And same way with them. If they came south of the river, then of course they were open to fire from our side. We used that ground surveillance radar to track several different infiltrators, actually. As a matter of fact, I've got some pictures of that also.
Interesting.
I don't know if you want me to talk about that or not, but
if you are allowed to, absolutely.
yeah, well, there is an incident that we had, actually. The Radar Hill Site 4 was down. Both radar units were down, and I had gotten a rush call to get my tail end up there to get it fixed. So we jumped in a Jeep and the repair equipment, and there was nobody on site up there, so I had to run up to the site and got one of the units up and running. And no sooner than I got one of the units up and running and got the azimuth set and got it all calibrated and everything, and the unit was working, I knew the unit was working properly. I went and made sure, and then started working on the 2nd unit. While I was out outside the bunker working on the 2nd unit, when one of the operators came running up and he said, Specialist Trantanella, he goes, we're having a problem here. We think we're picking up ghost targets. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I think we're picking up some ghost targets, which is basically it's false target reading, basically. So I'm like, okay, that shouldn't be happening. So I get up and we go back into the bunker and we take a look, and I'm looking at the radar, and I know everything that I did was right. And the OIC goes, is that targets? Are those targets real? And I said, yes, sir, those targets are real. I said, you've got something moving from the north to the south in the river. And he said, are you sure, Specialist Trantanella? So I bet my stripes on it. So he made a call to Fort Papa 1, which is a field artillery unit, just a little bit south of us. And they lobbed about 6 or 7 rounds over into the river and sent a patrol down and found what was left of about 6 or 7 infiltrators with American weapons and American ammunition coming from the north to the south.
Huh. Do you think that that was a coincidence that they were trying to cross the same time that your radar was down?
I think no, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think they knew what they were doing. For some way, some reason, they knew that there was a hole there where they could actually thought they could sneak through.
Do you think they had detection equipment, or do you think there was someone on the south side giving them information?
No, I think they just kind of had some kind of detection equipment or something like that. I'm sure it was. Yeah, I would never suggest that anybody from the south side was feeding information to the north. I wouldn't. I would think not. God, I would hope not.
So, how long were the radars down?
They were down for about an hour before I got up there and got the first one going, and that's why I guess we kind of caught them with their pants down. Because I got up there, I got it back up and got them running fast and quick, and by the time these guys were about halfway across the 2-mile wide stretch of the DMZ and in the river, and I got that unit running, yeah, we caught them by surprise, and obviously Fort Papa 1 was direct on target.
So that's
See what they do is they'll detect targets, and they got a map coordinate laid over their screen, and they can give them exact triangulated coordinates and pinpoint it right to the, I'm going to say within 10 yards of where those people are actually on a grid coordinate and a map. And so when they call those grid coordinates in to Fort Papa 1 just lays them right on the money. And we blew up some North Koreans that day.
wow. Was it officially acknowledged?
No. No, never. I do have pictures though. So I'll let you take a look at those if you want.
That's just, it's fascinating, because even if they had the detection equipment, the radar was only down for an hour, they must have been ready to go, waiting for it.
And that was the whole thing about North Korea back then. It was to try to infiltrate south, and that's why we're there, to keep them from raising political chaos or pulling off political assassinations. A lot of them, when they got in there, disguised themselves as college students, and that's why through the early 80s and mid 80s in South Korea, they had so many college riots, because these people were becoming instigators. Mm-hmm. And
were they in uniform when they were crossing?
A couple of them were in civilian clothes. They had snorkel gear. A couple of them had scuba gear, Remington ammunition, K-bars, Remington 22, 45, Smith & Wesson, and then and a couple of them had other rifles. I don't remember exactly what they were.
So, I'm sure you did a lot of talking with other guys on the DMZ. Do you think this was fairly common, or?
Like I said, they always seem to be probing, seeing what they can get away with, see how far they can sneak in, and we would use patrols to like fire at them to get them to turn around to go back. And once we acknowledged the fact that they had turned around and went back north, but yeah, it was, that was whatever, I don't know what the plan was really, but obviously to get south and to try to to disrupt the South Korean government. Or to infiltrate in and do some kind of espionage type work or something like that. It was definitely fascinating. That was the exciting part of my military career. Kept you on your toes.
I believe it. How long were you there?
13 months.
And you said you were up on the DMZ itself most of that time? Or?
Yes, most of the time.
What was your rotation like? Couple days on, couple days off?
Usually, yeah, it would be like 3 or 4 days on and then 3 or 4 days off. But sometimes there would be nobody up there as far as our repairmen. It's just if the units were working well, our company commander would want to bring our people back to the base. Mm-hmm. I guess just to keep better tabs on them or something like that.
What were the facilities like when you were on the DMZ? Did you have barracks somewhere, or?
On the DMZ, they were Quonset huts, open bay Quonset huts. We slept 20-25 people to an open bay area, and then used little fuel oil heaters through the winter. And it was all right. I mean, it wasn't hateful. It got better. They started actually building little military barracks units out of brick, and more modern facilities. They weren't really large. It might have been like maybe 3,000 square feet, and that's where basically everybody on the hillside stayed. But there wasn't a lot of people there. There probably was only maybe, I want to say 20-25 people, maybe max. So we all kind of stayed in the same barracks. But we also, right on the hill right next to us, had a what they call a Rock Ranger Battalion, which is the Republic of Korean Rangers, basically equivalent to our 82nd Airborne. And these guys were badass. Hand-to-hand combat, all black belt Taekwondo. Excellent fighters.
So the bulk of the military forces were South Korean, and you guys were watching the specialized equipment, or is that?
No, because it just depends. In different areas, some areas, because of course the DMZ goes across the whole peninsula of the country, and that's quite an area to try to defend. Some areas would be more South Korean military, and some areas would be more American.
Okay.
It just depended. We manned our radar hill sites. These were just ideal areas. They were high elevation, where you could oversee and look down on everything. And with the ground surveillance radar, it was the best place for them. You could see into North Korea a long way with those things. Even what you couldn't see with the naked eye, you could see with the radar. And that's actually what they called the radar units, eyes. The eyes of Korea. Because if you look at like your direct TV dish, you see how that's like almost the shape of an eye, because it's kind of oval. That's where they got that. That's what the radar unit itself, almost the reflection dish on the radar unit looked like itself. So that's why they got the nickname the Eyes of Korea.
Huh. Now, of course, they were probably the first targets should the North Koreans ever attack. Did that thought ever cross your mind?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I would think that would be a pretty obvious target if the North Koreans did attack. Did you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, they're going to want to knock out that, because that way we can't see what they're doing. Yes, we've been fired upon many times up there.
With what?
Small arms ammunition. Always, we've expelled ammunition on site at least a dozen times while I was up there on the Radar Hill site.
What did you do when that happened?
Duck. No, actually, they throw a box of ammo at you, bandoliers or whatever. You're sitting there loading magazines, and when they say expel all ammunition on site, that's what you do. You try to pick a flash from a North Korean barrel and hit it. That's what we try to do. I mean, it's the public doesn't really ever hear or see of a lot of what goes on, unfortunately, on the DMZ. It's just what the military people themselves who have served up there bring back. And
So you've actually been engaged in firefights with North Koreans.
Yes, sir.
Did you get a combat infantryman badge?
No, I did not actually. I didn't think about that.
Was it acknowledged, the firefights?
No,
or?
they don't acknowledge any of that. Never publicly or nothing like that. Yeah, they never. None of that information is ever released to the public. That's very well kept secrets.
That's interesting. So, any of your paperwork since you've got out, does anything reflect service in a combat zone?
Only the fact that I served in Korea for 13 months. And because it was the country itself is in an armistice, which basically is a ceasefire, they say that that's serving in a combat-related area.
Gotcha. So you at least get that.
Yes, I did get that.
Very interesting. Did you guys ever take any casualties?
No. It's a long ways away. I think, you just thank God that they weren't very good shots, and I mean, you could hear bullets whizzing by, whether it's 50 cal ammunition or what, I don't know, but it's mostly it was all small arms fire. There was no mortar rounds or no tank shooting or anything like that, or any field artillery or anything like that. This was all usually just all small arms fire.
So, when you were on the DMZ, no radars need to be fixed. What do you do?
If I'm up there, basically I ran, stay in shape. Just try to do what I can to stay physically fit, be combat ready. Just in case, because you never knew what day, if that day would come, where you'd have to be prepared to defend the hill.
What about in the evenings? What'd you do to entertain yourselves?
I played cards, drank a little bit, couldn't really drink a lot, didn't want to drink a lot because you just never knew. Like I said, you're on your toes. It was a different story when we went back to base, but yeah, up there, if you were on the radar hill site, I mean, there was things to do. We had TV, we had, VCR tapes, a lot of guys played cards, just BS around. Played a little volleyball. We had our own little volleyball net set up, our little camp.
All right. So a bunch of guys trying to stay entertained. Any good pranks?
Yeah, there was a few, but nothing that I'd really want to talk about.
So really fun pranks.
Could be, yes, some incriminating evidence.
Okay. Did you ever write back home while you were?
Oh yeah,
up there?
always wrote my wife, which of course I was still married to my first wife then at that point. Of course she couldn't go to Korea with me. I actually got divorced after I came back from Korea. I think being away for a year, she didn't just like me being gone that long. So it ended up causing my divorce with her, unfortunately. I want to blame it on Korea, but it was probably more my fault than it was, I'd say, just being deployed.
But being deployed didn't help.
Being deployed did not help, yeah, unfortunately.
Okay. So how about when you went back to the camp?
Well, then you're there with the whole unit. I mean, there's a lot of things to do. The city of Dongdaecheon is right outside the gates. Hundreds of shops, hundreds of bars. I mean, we do what we call a thunder run. We grab the company guide on, and anybody who wanted to join in, just follow the company guide on. We'd go off post. Well, everybody had to get a pass first because you couldn't leave post without a pass. You got your pass, you follow the company guide on. We did what we call a thunder run. We'd just go from bar to bar and drink a beer, go to the next bar, drink another beer, go to the bar, drink another beer. And that was kind of like more or less our entertainment. But then when you're back at camp, you do have the opportunity to get around and see a lot more of the culture of the people of the Republic of Korea. It's really neat. I got to go to a couple zoos and to the National Museum in Seoul, and I mean, the cultural stuff. I mean, I sat there and watched people plant rice for an hour. You know, just different things. You know, it's kind of fascinating. There's a whole different lifestyle than what, you know, we're used to in the United States.
So when you were back at the camp for a few days, did you have duties, or was it liberty the whole time? Or
No, there was always duties. I mean, you know, we had to run PT every morning, just basically the same as any other unit would have to. You know, then of course there was chow and mandatory formation, 7 o'clock in the morning. Then we'd go back over to the maintenance garage area or whatever, and I would probably be helping out at that point, repair a radio, or maybe working on a couple of the spare radar units that we had there in case we had to take. We always had spare units in case we actually had to take one with us up to the Radar Hill site. In case in case one of the units up there just was basically trashed and was going to entail hours of service to get it up and running. Sometimes we got lucky, sometimes you don't get so lucky. So when we always went up to the Radar Hill site with a down radar, we always took a spare unit with us just in case. So if we had an issue trying to repair the unit, we could set up the already working unit and have them up and running within a short period of time. But yeah, there was always something to do.
all right. What about buddies? Got any buddies you still keep in touch with, or?
Yeah, actually, Lonnie Johnson. He's from Columbus, Ohio. Gentleman I met over there. He was with the headquarters in Alpha Company there, with the unit I was with. Yeah, I still talk to him. We still email each other. We actually got together up at the Columbus Casino last summer. I'm sorry, no, that was this summer. And did a little gambling, a little talk a little war stories, things we did, things we didn't want to admit to. Stuff like that. It's a lot of, yeah, the one guy, yeah, Lonnie Johnson. He was a hell of a guy. We hung out a lot.
So you were there for 13 months, so you were there for a set of holidays.
Yes.
What's Thanksgiving and Christmas like on the DMZ?
Well, if you were lucky, you were back in camp, and you got a really good meal. And then they always would, you know, try to make it as homey as possible for everybody. Set up a Christmas tree, a little bit of lighting, or, you know, Thanksgiving, you know, just camaraderie, you know, the people doing things together and stuff like that. And it's you know, because they are your family. They're, you know, your extended family. Mm-hmm. Because you're there, you're living, and you're willing to die with these people. So, you know, you make a lot of friends, and you make a few enemies. I shouldn't say a lot of enemies. You can't make everybody happy, but.
Did you guys exchange presents?
With a few close friends, yeah.
Okay.
That was totally optional.
So you said you had a visitor.
Oh yes, President Reagan. Yes, sir. Totally caught everybody by surprise. I don't think even the OIC on the Hill knew that he was coming. Basically, him and a 3-star and a 2-star general, of course with his Secret Service, flew up in Air Force One chopper. I was shocked. I saw that land and I'm like, as soon as I saw the emblem on the side of the chopper, I was like, oh my. And then the OIC was running around like a chicken with his head cut off because he knew we were caught totally off guard. Mm-hmm. So they were trying to straighten up the bunker area, and, you know, it's a quick dress kind of thing, make things look as neat as possible. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting. He came up and just said hi to everybody. And it was shook hands with some bunch of people. I unfortunately didn't get to shake hands with him. There was a lot of people that wanted to get in close, and I wish I could have gotten a picture or something. That would have been nice. But just to be there with him and to see him was impressive.
So he flew within 2 miles of the North Korean border, and a helicopter marked the President of the United States.
Along with an escort of a lot of Apache helicopters.
Okay. Still,
it was probably a full squadron of Apache helicopters.
I'm sure they were hovering around.
Oh yeah, they did not land. They stayed. They hovered. Oh yeah.
I can only imagine what the North Koreans on the other side thought.
Well, they were probably wondering the same thing. Yeah, wondering, what was going on, especially seeing the Apaches hovering. I mean, you're talking 10 to 12 Apache helicopters hovering around one radar hill site. And then from what I heard after he left, is that he wanted to go up and he wanted to see the DMZ. And they figured this was probably going to be the most secure place because the least amount of people. I mean, there was, like I said, only 25 of us on this hill. And this was a great opportunity and a great view for him actually to see the DMZ. So you could actually literally look down into North Korea and you see what they call propaganda cities over in the north. Well, nobody lives in them, but they're beautifully painted, well kept, well manicured cities. And that's the key word there. It's all propaganda. It's to make you look from the south to the north and say, look, see how beautiful North Korea is? It's propaganda. I mean, we did the same thing to them. We'd fly big old giant weather balloons up with banners that said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and play Stairway to Heaven on giant speakers over to the north. That's when the firefights usually started.
Oh, really?
Something like that. They were trying to shoot the weather balloon, I guess, I assume. Or they just got mad.
So you guys were instigating a little bit.
Well, yeah, it's a little propaganda goes both ways.
Nice. So when it was time to rotate back home, did you know ahead of time what your date was, or?
Yes, because I actually was ETSing out.
Okay.
At that point. So I know I should have left in October, but they extended my term of service for an extra month to give me time to out-process through the base and basically pass on my duties to another individual and make sure he was trained and ready to go and before I left. So they extended my term of service. I actually served 4 years and 1 month in the military.
So how'd you make the decision not to re-enlist?
It was really a tough decision because I love the military. I got to see a lot, I got to do a lot, I got my college education. There was a lot of beneficial things. I had a lot of friends. It just, I think basically what it boiled down to is I'd been in front of the E5 board and I passed it with flying colors, but they didn't want to pin my E5 on me. And I said, well, if you're not going to pin my E5 on me, I'm going to get out. And they said, re-enlist and we'll pin your E5 on you. I said, no. I said, you pin my E5 on me, and I said, I'll re-enlist for 6 years. And we couldn't compromise on that deal, unfortunately.
So, what did your buddies think when you decided not to re-enlist? Was there any?
We exchanged addresses, said goodbyes, said try to keep in touch. They're happy to see you go home, though. I mean, everyone wants to go home. So that's the thing, just, you live, you go on, meet more friends, different people. Just what it is. Everybody wants, like I said, everybody wants to go home. So yeah, you're happy for them when they leave, and you're really happy when you're leaving.
Yeah.
It's time to go home after a year there.
So you got out and came back to Dayton?
Yes, sir.
Did you have a job lined up, or?
No, I was just winging it. Just got out. I was still young. I mean, I'm only 24, a little over 20, going on 25. So I came home. Dad said you can stay at home as long as you want. I'm like, okay, no problem. I got out and actually moved to Tennessee for a couple of years and drove a coal truck for a couple of years. And then after realized that was a really dirty job, decided to come back to Dayton, and my dad got me into an apprenticeship in tool making. I started working actually with him.
Okay.
and worked with him for about 6 years before I got laid off there. And basically, like I said, followed my father's footsteps in the tool and die business, and I'm a tool maker myself, which I've been for 28 years now. 27, 28 years.
So, was it hard to readjust to civilian life, or?
No, no, it's same life, just no uniform.
Okay. So obviously you're a member of a veteran organization.
Yes, sir. I am the senior vice commander of the post here, the VFW Post 5434 in Union. Just newly elected official this year, actually, my first year in. I think I got conned into it. I don't know how that happened. I must have been drinking one night. I don't know. But it's not that bad. It really isn't. The people here are great. Our veterans that we have here are awesome. We have a great organization. This is my extended family now. It's just like what the military was then. This is my extended family now. And there isn't nothing I wouldn't do for anyone that's a member here.
So, how do you think your experience in the military has affected your life?
Oh, I think it had a great effect on my life. Some good, some bad. Like I said, I think my deployment to Korea actually caused me to get divorced from my high school sweetheart, which was unfortunate. But then it taught me a lot about, got to see a lot of the world. It taught me a lot about discipline, about how to be a man and, stand up for what's right, good, just to do what's right. Camaraderie, unity. It was a great experience for me. I really did hate getting out.
So you served in a pretty hot environment. How's your military service impacted your feelings about war? And
oh, that's a tricky question. I guess it all depends on the cause. I mean, when the president says you go as a commander-in-chief, you go. I mean, you're in, that's your job. As far as the different wars that have gone on, I think we're doing what we think is right for democracy, to try to free people and give them the freedoms that we have and the liberties that we have to enjoy. Unfortunately, there's other people in that country that don't want to give you those, don't give them any kind of freedoms or liberties. And these are the guys that are lopping people's heads off, which bugs me. So I feel, if we have to do what we got to do to try to give these people who want those freedoms, I mean, it's for a just cause. I mean, when you want to be free, everybody wants that freedom, not to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Oppressed, I guess would be a good word. To live under a tyrant, a dictator. You want the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, the freedom to bear arms, which most of them do anyway. But I mean, it's always for a good cause, and I'm never going to say anything negative about war, because if our country says it's it's right, then I'm as a veteran and an ex-military serviceman, I'm backing them 100%.
So if you were talking to someone just graduating from high school and they were thinking about the military, any advice?
If you think it's right for you, go for it. I think that's about the best advice I could give. It takes a special person to go through military training and to be able to take orders and be combat ready, to be able to get into a fight and make it through it, and to deal with the situation and the scenarios, and I mean, it's life or death. I mean, especially these days, especially with what's going on in Iraq and Afghanistan, it's a tough scenario. Most definitely. You got to be emotionally and physically fit to handle it.
All right. Was there anything we haven't gone over? Anything you want to add?
No, I think it's been pretty good. I pretty much have addressed my military career and what I think about it. I was very happy with my term of service. I cannot complain. Again, I'll say that. I enjoy my freedoms and my liberties that I have for my country, and I appreciate everyone's service who is doing it now. What I did then. Pretty much that's it.
Good deal. All right.